So now it is our time for our guest speakers. Yay! So both of these women, like most of you in this room, have been on this journey for a very long time and in a very conscious way. I've gotten to know Gloria Halverson. You've taken all the classes that I've done, I think, since I've been here. And she was taking classes at Oakland Centers for Spiritual Living, and she's just been on this lifelong quest to discover who and what she really is. And Leah Maxwell Stiles I also know from classes here, and she's currently a student at the Berkeley Interfaith Chaplaincy Program, and I get to be her mentor, so we've had some wonderful one-on-one sessions where I get to know Leah even better, so I'm really excited for today with these magnificent women. And even as they are giving and sharing their Christ consciousness, I know you already do this, but I'm just saying, remember, you're giving your love and your unconditional love and support to them as they're speaking, so they know that they are being loved, as sometimes we know it's a little nerve-wracking to get up in front of people and speak. So give them your love. We begin with Gloria Halverson.
It was a long way to walk from back there. Let's see. Is this good, Jack? Okay. So Gloria Halverson, and thank you, Reverend Harriet. I do want to talk a little bit today about my journey in Christ consciousness. And I'm glad that you shared some examples of Christ consciousness. I just want to read what I wrote down, what I gathered from the last 4 weeks. And I was hoping as she started speaking today, it wasn't going to be something terribly different from the way I wrote my talk. So Christ consciousness, as I understand it, it's the individualized divinity within me. It's energy that's already there, that doesn't need creating or changing. It just needs to be realized. And that through spiritual practice, I can become aware, more attuned to this energy. So the invitation to me is to realize this in every aspect and area of my life, and to allow this goodness to reign and to feel the embrace of God. And if I do these things, then I will have peace, harmony, and love, and all of those God qualities that were emulated by Jesus Christ. And so over the last 4 weeks, Reverend Harriet has talked about Christ consciousness, and it's been great. It's been 4 weeks of being immersed in this. The second week, she talked about our shadow sides, those parts of us where we have put aside, where we have some energy that needs to be released, and so that we can reclaim all of ourselves. The third week, she talked about glorying in the perfection of everyone and practicing forgiveness. And she talked about 7 billion times, 7 times, I think, practicing forgiveness. And the fourth week, celebrating the presence. Christ consciousness is always yes and. And so the invitation to me today is to speak about Christ consciousness in my life, and I'm nervous. I used to speak in front of people all the time, and I haven't done it in a very long time, so this is interesting. But I figure I've got either it works, and then I can speak the next 20 times, or I can get this forgiveness 7 billion times. Oh, what happened to our chart, our metaphysical chart? Oh, I was going to walk over and just point to it, just because that's what Reverend Harriet always does. So anyway, if you asked me 20 years or so ago when I was in a traditional Christian religion, if you'd asked me what Christ consciousness was, I would have explained it as an outward expression of how I lived my life. And the question would have been, how am I living that demonstrates the principles of Jesus Christ? And those principles of love, compassion, forgiveness, honesty, kindness, gratitude, prayer, service. Still today, one of my sisters has a sign over her front door that says, "Remember who you are and what you stand for." And that's the way I was raised. So it was this idea that was I living my personal integrity that represented the practices that were taught to me in this religion that I was raised in. For me, it was more a sense of accountability, both personal accountability and accountability from authority figures. Not as much judgment. I know a lot of people felt judgment in their upbringing. I really didn't feel that, but it was a strong sense of accountability, and it was an external issue. It was an external idea. And my relationship with God at that time was definitely I, thou. A very personal relationship. Now, I had a great traditional Christian upbringing. And I really value that. And it served me well, and it was really important in my life, and I never want to say anything against that because it did serve me. Now, the question was I standing in Christ consciousness? Was I feeling Christ consciousness, or was this a human obligation to do the right thing? So I would say that to the extent that I could understand the principle at that point, there were definitely these inner whisperings. We would have called it the Holy Ghost, but it was this Christ consciousness that speaks to us. So then during my college years, my life took me on life's journey took me on a different path. And I remained spiritual, but there was many years when I didn't participate in a spiritual community. Several years ago, I wrote a poem about this time that starts. I won't read the whole thing. Thank God for twisty roads, for back roads and footpaths and deer trails and less traveled bypasses with vistas and views that reveal the sometimes lost, sometimes found horizons of my soul. So, during that time, I was always a seeker. I was always looking for the meaning of life. And it was sort of this joke. I mean, it was sort of this, this poke at fun. I would always ask people, what's the meaning of life? But what I was expressing was this deeper desire to have this connection with something spiritual in my life. But I looked for it in all sorts of different places, like films. Remember Billy Crystal in City Slickers asking Curly what was the meaning of life, and there it was just one thing, and it's different for everybody. In Grand Canyon, Kevin Kline had a conversation with Danny Glover and said, "Why does your dad continue to show up in the ghettos in Los Angeles?" And his dad said, "Habit." So I went around for a while saying habit was the meaning of life. And then when I was with Lee up at the ranch, before he left, transitioned, I used to say to him, "What's the meaning of life?" And he would say, "It's Bailey's in our coffee." In the mornings, watching the wild animals in front of the house. And so definitely, that was the meaning of life. Definitely Christ was there too. And then remember LA's story when the freeway sign lit up and said "doo-wah diddy diddy dum diddy doo." Okay, there you go. That's the meaning of life for this year. And then of course there was the bracelet I bought that said, "What if the hokey pokey is what it's really all about?" So during this time, I continued to pray, mainly at times of distress, usually not in joy. I dabbled in New Thought practices, usually the bestseller books, nothing too deep. But I knew there was always something more. And as Ernest Holmes so eloquently put it, we may stumble, but always there is that eternal voice forever whispering in our ear, that thing that causes the eternal quest, that thing that forever sings and sings. So about 5 years ago, I walked into the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living, and as a lot of people say, as soon as I walked in, it felt like I was at home. And the first class I took was a visioning class, because that was what was the first one that was offered. I've always been in all the classes. And was a little lost there. The next one was Foundations, and one of the sections in Foundations is on Christ consciousness. So that was really my reintroduction to this issue of Christ consciousness. And so now, here, I'm invited to consider Christ consciousness from a more introspective perspective. Am I attuned to the divine nature that's within me? Do I live from that perspective in all areas of my life? So this is a subtle shift from where it was, I like to say 20 plus years ago. It was really probably 40 years ago. But from this Christ consciousness as a youth to what I'm experiencing now. So where do I feel that I'm walking in tune with my divine nature, the God spirit that's within me? Where am I at peace? Definitely in nature. Definitely. I have this very strong communion with these wild animals. When we look eye to eye at each other, we both see God in each other. And that's a very important part of my life. Music serves to take me away from everything else that's going on in my mind and really attunes me to that divine spirit. spiritual community is really important, and that's why I show up at all these classes. And then family. I just have such a loving family that when I'm with them, it's just really clear that the Spirit is there, and I could put other things aside and really feel the Spirit. And it's not that I don't complain about them, and it's not that my sisters and I don't argue. And you've heard all of them. But so where are my growing edges? Where are those places that I'm challenged in looking at Christ consciousness in my life? One of them is in valuing myself, an issue that I continue to work with. Releasing judgments, not that I judge any of you, but I also, I have an affinity to melancholy. It comes from my introverted, introspective, tender-hearted self. So when I'm there, it's hard for me to find the door out. And so I really do shut down in those times, and it's hard for me to get back to knowing Christ consciousness within me. And the other one is getting to places on time. I'm always late for things, and it's at those times when nothing can get through. I'm just concerned about the traffic and everything else that's going on. So this past year has been a really strong year for me with changes in consciousness and allowing grace and detaching from some of my old habits and positions. One of the things that's helped me, there's about 3 of us that participated in morning calls. So every morning and then we don't have any rules around it, but for about 3 minutes each, we just talk about insights. It's a conversation. It's not a prayer. It's just more a conversation about what's going on with us and what insights we've reached, and realizing the Christ consciousness within us and letting go of those things that have burdened us. So that's been really good. And I'm so excited about this spiritual community. I just love the classes that we've had here. They're so deep and rich. And Reverend Harriet is just always, her talks just offers so much to think about and so much to consider. And so I'm just really thankful to be here, and everything that we've done has been great. So for me, it's it's one day at a time. It's working on my spiritual practices. It's not looking too far ahead. Instead, it's just focusing on this moment, which of course is Christ consciousness, being in the moment. So I wanted to read a poem that I wrote, and I was going to read one on forgiveness. And when I was looking through my rather disorganized poems that I wrote, I came across this one. It's very short. And I can't even remember writing it. But anyway, here you go. It just seemed to fit. So here we go. I wrote it when I can't even remember, for this class today. So here you go. Let me breathe first. Untethered from earthly constraints such as gravity, which shouldn't be so heavy, I lift my arms with the intention of uplift, and miraculously, or maybe not, I rise. In the embrace of the loving squirrel, which is the creative medium, which always says, yes, I am flying. Who says I cannot soar? Who says I do not have wings and the heavens are not mine? Only I can ground myself. And so I choose joy. I choose dreaming the dream and truthing the dream, dreaming the truth and truthing the dream. It's mine for the asking. And so it is.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Today I wanted to share my concept of going green with Christ consciousness. Notice the outfit. Okay, we all know what going green means. It's an eco-friendly approach to living and caring for our planet, and it's those day-to-day choices that we make that are in the best interest of our environment and our planet. And that's how I like to think of my spiritual practice. It's a day-to-day making choices that are soul feeding, and in that way they enrich my spiritual practice and my Christ consciousness. So I want to share with you how my spiritual practice started, how it's evolved, and how I'm currently going green. So I wasn't raised in a religious family. My mother was a Catholic but wasn't practicing. My father was agnostic. And when I was very young, my parents divorced. When I was about 11 or 12, I went to live with my father, and my grandmother was a reverend. She was involved in a metaphysical Christian church. So I began attending services at her church, and the main messages in her church were that there are many different paths, spiritual paths, and that the importance was to choose a path and to respect others on their path. The church also included psychic readings at the end of each service. So what I learned from that was to pay attention to those things that are beyond this single dimension and to listen to words that are unsaid. So I had that understanding. I moved out of the house when I was 16, and then when I was about 18, a roommate introduced me to a Science of Mind church. And right away, like most people say, I felt at home. The teachings were taken from different sacred texts. We didn't focus on any one religion, and we had an appreciation for the power of our thought and our actions. And when I was 26, I met the woman that would become my lovely wife. And we dated for about 9 months, and then I broke up with her. And it was not pretty. It was very ugly, and it caused a lot of hurt. And I took that opportunity to really do some soul searching. And what I realized was I did want a lifelong, loving relationship, but I had no modeling of that. My mother, when my father and mother divorced, things got really rough. My mom turned to drug and alcohol. As children, we were homeless on more than a few occasions. We moved around a lot. Things were very unstable. And so I needed to find some way of bringing kind of some stability into my life. And I knew that those were found in the principles of Science of Mind. So I got back into church, and I tried really hard. She didn't make it easy, but I won her back. And then together, we started our relationship with a foundation in Science of Mind. So we began attending services. It took us a while to find a community that we felt comfortable with. We did. We made a commitment to the church. We took the foundations class together. That was in 95. That was in 90. We were youngins then. And we commuted. It was a 45-minute commute to church. Midweek, they had a meditation service on Wednesday nights. Beth commuted from where she worked, 45 minutes to an hour away. We got in a car and we drove down to Costa Mesa, and we did that Wednesday service. We had a foundation in Science of Mind. We were married in a church in 95, and that same year we moved up to here in Livermore. And it took us a while here, although we searched for another spiritual community. And we shopped around. We went to Walnut Creek, we went to Santa Rosa, we went to Fremont, we went to San Jose, and nothing really jived with us. But we did have our daily practice, our spiritual practice that was the foundation of our relationship. And that worked for us. And when I turned 40, about that time, I had this idea that I would choose a spiritual goal, something that brought me face to face with my fears, and I knew that I would have to have faith to overcome it. And so I chose to do an open water swim. Now, I didn't know how to swim, and it was going to take an act of God to get me in a bathing suit. So I thought this was a really good challenge for me. Well, a year passed, and I didn't even get in a pool once. I mean, it was not, as my wife says, I have ideas, I don't always have plans. So I signed myself up for a triathlon. I figured I would have to learn how to swim if I was going to do an event. So training, I had the run down, I had the bike down, but I needed to learn how to swim. So I started training, and about a couple of weeks, about a month or so before the event, my coach asked me, okay, when is this event? Swimming was going, but it was progressing very slowly. It was a challenge. And one day I got into the pool and I started having panic attacks in the water. I didn't know why, but it's like totally vertigo thing where you're in the pool swimming. And the pool just kept on getting, the end of the pool kept on getting further and further and further away. And I had about 6 weeks to the event. So I had to forego the open water practice swims because you couldn't stand up in the ocean, right? I really wanted to quit. It was just so fearful for me. I just didn't know what was going on. And my wife gently nudged me back into the pool. And so for a couple of training sessions, all I could do was walk the length of the pool. So I committed to the training. It was 45 minutes in a pool, twice a week, 3 times a week, and I just walked back and forth. Well, one day, something happened. The sky opened up, the angels started singing, the light was there. I put my hands in the water and I swam like I'd never swum before, and I just felt the oneness with all that was. God was there, I was there, it was a beautiful thing. And when I got home that day, I did my reading, and it happened to be my grandmother's birthday. I didn't know that. And the reading for that day was taken, I think I'm running short on time, so I'll read from you. From Science of Mind, it was, that is the concept Jesus had when he said that God delivered everything to him, but he could do nothing except God as him in him doeth the works. And the teaching was, whenever something may seem difficult at first, we only need to remember God is doing it through us. We are God's hands and feet, so declare it to be easy, allow it to be easy. Life doesn't have to be a struggle. You can be in a flow with life. When we live life in alignment with the principles of Science and Mind, life can be easy. Didn't say it was going to be trouble-free, but I did have tools to work with. And one of the things I did was I got a ring to commemorate that experience so that I can, on my day-to-day, I could remember that experience if I should forget, because I knew I needed to be grounded in those principles. And I also have a bracelet to commemorate the subsequent Olympic distance triathlons that I did in the ocean with the fishes. and it's been how our spiritual practice is. It's about bringing the Christ awareness into our everyday. I begin every morning with a prayer practice and meditation. I look to nature to find that connection, anything that I can do to remind myself and keep me grounded in that. And it has served me well. Recently, I changed careers, and I'm now returned to school, and it's become even important to have that spiritual community as a means of support. So I'm so grateful for this church here and the classes that have been offered. Through the classes, I'm plugging your classes, Reverend Harriet. I've learned not only to visualize, but to vision, to do the visioning process with the future events. That takes a lot of trust. And also taking a look at my spiritual practice. It was working just fine, I figured, but then learning how to augment it. So it's kind of taking a more proactive approach to those things that come our way that we have no control over. And it's been serving me well. So I want to thank you for hearing about my concept of going green, and I encourage you to do the same. And this is my favorite go green tactic. When the traffic signal says, don't walk, don't.
Isn't it wonderful to see how people are using the principles in their lives and it's just evolving and growing? Oh, thank you, Leah. Thank you, Gloria. Let's give another beautiful hand. Thank you for being so beautiful. Woohoo! It takes a lot of courage to get up and share one's life with everybody. So make sure you give them love after service, too. So we're going to pray now. Take all that wonderful energy. And as we were reminded this morning that there is only one power, one presence. One power, one presence. One. There is only one. Not two. One. There's only one presence in this room right now. There is no other. There is no opposite to this one power, this one presence, this infinite love, this infinite harmony, beauty, joy, wisdom, grace, abundance. And that this power is always whole, perfect, and complete. It can never be taken away from. It can never be added onto. It is always perfect, just as it is in this moment. In, through, and as all creation and beyond all creation, beyond all time and space. It is fully, absolutely, birthless and deathless, perfect. And it is perfectly shining its light in this world of relativity, in this world of seeming limitations, of opposites and duality. It contains all of that. And we are all of that. For this power and this presence is who we are. It is all that we are, not just parts of ourselves. It is of all who we are. The dark and the light, the good and the bad, the up and the down, the seeking and the non-seeking, all aspects of our beingness is this Christ consciousness right here and right now. We are each beautiful, individualized expressions of this one life. We are all wonderfully one and individual and unique and powerful and essential for this fulfillment of heaven on earth to happen right here and right now on this planet. So I give thanks and praise for the power and the presence and the love of God individually expressing as each and every individual in this room. I give thanks for all the stories that we are in and swimming in all day long. These beautiful stories of revelations, of insights, of ahas. And even in the midst of the struggles and the challenges, there the beauty and the love of pure spirit is. It is in everything. And so we see this in our life, in any area of our life that may feel like it's separate or apart or is other, whether it's our physical life, emotional life, our relationships, our finances, our work life, whatever is rising in our life, our friendships, our relationships with our family, our relationships with our community, with our government, with organizations that we may not even have contact with, but we feel at odds. Any place where we feel other, where we feel there is an enemy, within us or without, there is only love, there is only God. And today we choose to see the truth of that which is beyond all time and space. There is only love, there is only God, there is only one. And it is from this revelation and this revelation alone that we have our healing. It is from this revelation that we move into right relationship with all aspects of who and what we really are. And as we are allowing this awareness of the one life permeate and pulsate as every atom and cell of our beingness, we hold this truth for all life on this planet. One life, one power, one love. We see and know only love. We are that place of beholding of Christ consciousness. We bow to this world and that seeing the truth of who in each and every individual life of God is, from the microcosm to the macrocosm. And we know all the universe is bowing back to us as we are that Christ consciousness here and now. So for the glory of the living God, alive and awake and aware as each one of us, and fully embodied at this moment, I just say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, God. And I now just release this word. I completely let it be, giving thanks for that life of God as Leah and Gloria, and for all beings in our room here today. I just let it be and invite us all to say together,